Okay, I guess let's get started. Do we have any open forum? I didn't see any people. Nope. Why don't we review the minutes then?
I make a motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, minutes approved.
Yes.
Announcements? Do we have any announcements? Or new business? Okay, why don't we go into our old business then? Everett, you want to give this, start with the benchmarking and annual report time frame?
Yeah, so this will be real quick. Sort of as indicated last month, we're striving to start our normal business operations. And so the benchmarking and annual reports is something that SOC generally puts together every year and submits for review and approval and distribution to the town board. So I am starting to work on those reports. Unfortunately, I don't have a good enough update to provide a draft today, but before next meeting, I'll get some drafts out to the committee via email and go ahead and share that way, and we can discuss at the next meeting. Review the data and all that stuff before we finalize the reports and submit to the town board. So that's pretty much it as far as what I have for the update there.
What about the tree inventory update? I don't know if you're leading us, Everett, on that, or maybe even Mitch wants to add in from the Conservation Board perspective. What's going on?
Yeah, if you want, I can start, and Mitch, feel free to jump in and correct me at any time. I just wanted to show you guys. So we did work with George Smith and a student that he was working with to put together a survey application for collecting and updating our tree inventory. Essentially, this is the app that you would go to on a phone, a mobile phone or a tablet, and then you would start collecting data, which I actually have loaded here. And then this is what would show up on your phone. This would be tied to your phone's GPS, so it would actually locate you as to where you are, and you start collecting information. So this one is telling me that, I'm at home here in Irondequoit because it's picking up my computer's IP. Then you start collecting information, species of a tree. You can add pictures that you take in the field, measure the height, DBH, and all that stuff. So essentially the survey is ready to go and ready for collection. And Mitch, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe that George is looking to start collecting this fall.
Yeah, he ran into some issues just getting school started back up and the difference in teaching now, so he had a lack of time to do it, but he was hoping to get it, at least some of it, started this fall before the leaves come off the trees.
Yeah, so this is kind of all tied back to our town's GIS system. So we're providing the credentials and storage capacity for the students in George. And this will just automatically be populated on our end. And what happens is once you start collecting, you can then view the records. And it just starts tabulating the data of, I have this tree McTree here, with just a test, sample, and we can start basically collecting and updating our inventory. And the idea behind this was, some of it was when we discussed last year of going for potential funding to aid in maintaining our tree canopy, whether it's for trimming, removal, or plantings. It's something that the town is in need of more funds of. And so part of those grant stipulations is that we have an updated tree inventory. And that is the idea behind currently updating our inventory through this GIS methodology.
Will this be, on the town's website, kind of in an active way, as it's being populated?
I don't know if it'll be available as it's being populated, because I think a lot of that data has to be reviewed and probably cleaned up. But yes, eventually, yes. The idea is to have like a GIS page on our website where we can display multiple maps that
Right.
has interesting and/or useful data for residents. Zoning maps, that type of stuff. And so to some extent, Paul, yes, there will be some of that. I just don't know how much data will be published, immediately.
Is he doing it with the students or with the town?
Right now, I believe that George is the idea is to use his students as part of like a classroom project. But I think there's maybe some volunteers from like the conservation board as well, and yes, town staff will help out, as needed or become available.
Okay.
And are you looking to inventory just what you call town trees, or so anything in the right of way or on town property?
Yeah.
That's good. Any questions? All right, well, thank you. That looks awesome. I guess, Mitch, let us know if you guys need more help with that, more volunteers.
Yeah, George is taking the lead on that,
Okay.
and I'll pass it on if he needs help. That we'll see what we can drum up.
Yeah.
I know he's looking to train people on how to use like the different measurement tools, how to measure the height of the tree and stuff like that. So he's going to try to train people on how to do that, and we'll see what happens when he gets that started.
Great. Okay, Everett, you want to lead us on the climate action plan updates?
Yeah, so climate action plan, essentially I am done on our end in terms of the data that the program was looking for. And what we've been told is that it's in the contract manager's ball court now. And generally speaking, for a bunch of the various grants that we have outstanding, is that we've been told that, we're kind of just on hold. We're in a holding pattern. We haven't been told that the grant funding will be taken away or anything like that, but there's a lot of uncertainty as to what might happen with some of these funds that were anticipated to be dispersed to the town. And Robin, please correct me if I'm wrong, or if there's any more info there that you might have.
No, that's spot on, Everett. Thank you.
And so I think, Aaron, what we had talked about maybe at our agenda meeting was, do we have to start looking at updating our goals that we had in the climate action plan initially, because some of that stuff is kind of changing based on the state's updated guidelines and all of that. And, currently right now, there's not much work to do until we do receive the grant or find out, any other updates from them.
Yeah, certainly I don't want to waste people's time, but, not waste our time, but when we drafted the plan, we were aligning the goals of the climate action plan with New York State goals, but New York State's greenhouse gas inventory goals have changed, and as well as their commitment for renewable energy. So at some point, we probably should update the goal of our plan, or even look at, I'm just thinking of Microsoft, which has a carbon negativity goal, right? So there's even more ambitious goals out there. So it might be worth a conversation to talk about what we want the goals to be in the future, since things are changing. I'm not sure if it's for next month's meeting, but I just wanted to put that out there to see if there was interest. And this sort of came from Mitch, right? Because you were talking to Color Bright and Green about this too.
Yeah, we were just, I had a lot of inquiries about what our goals were, how aggressive are we being, and if it was just for the town or if it was going to address the community goals as well. Things are progressing pretty quickly, we could be more aggressive, maybe. I don't know. It's something worth talking about for sure.
Should we be in the process of looking at the plan as it is, but the fact that we're not formalizing it, as we wait to hear of the grant, should there be areas that we say, well, we want to, some of the more immediate items, think about moving things forward?
I mean, actions that we could take?
Yeah. Like trying, at least putting it out there.
That would be good.
Does the plan have to go out as a whole, or can we move on, the sooner we move on action items, the better. And then we could maybe change this to say this is certain aspects are in flux or in progress, that kind of thing.
Yeah, certainly other communities, I think Canandaigua, they just started doing action and didn't even have an inventory, right? So we don't have to wait. We can maybe start looking at some of these items and maybe picking a few to focus on for the year and try to get the town to take some action.
I think Robin mentioned this last time, that looking at code changes would be important. I don't know if that could come under this umbrella of actions, but I'm watching that Doodlebug daycare being built and thinking about the missed opportunities.
Yeah.
Not only are they clear cutting a lot of land, but they're installing, probably a gas furnace in there. And that gas furnace is going to commit them to emitting quite a few emissions over the years. And so I actually failed in this, but this week I was looking at the California website, because the Secretary of State in California has banned the installation of gas furnaces. So they updated their codes to require the installation of electric furnaces and electric water heaters. And so I was looking for examples of that kind of legislation that we could, use here. And I couldn't get through the technical documents and find where that code was, so I failed in that. But maybe somebody more experienced than me could follow through.
Yeah, I think, was it Berkeley or Oakland? It was somewhere in the East Bay, outside of San Francisco, Silicon Valley area, that actually had some municipal code. I could look it up.
Well, along with that, I believe new construction of new homes will either now or in 2021 require they be electric as opposed to gas.
Yeah, I think that's the legislation I was thinking of.
Yeah, it's called Title 24 in California. I just sent a link to the overall state website. There's a lot of challenges with Title 24, but it's good, right? Because it codifies something that an entire industry has to pivot, as opposed to doing something municipality by municipality, which creates complexity for supply chains and standardization. It increases costs with not substantial benefit. So I think that's what NYSERDA is working towards in New York, but California is always the first mover in this. And sorry I'm late, everybody.
Good to have you here.
Hi.
In at the right time.
Brian.
Yeah, the only thing I wanted to add to that, guys, is that I agree. There are things we can probably move forward. It's just a kind of like a double-edged sword, because we wouldn't be getting credit for it as part of the grant, and the grant is willing to pay for in-kind services, and so it's something to consider. But I'll just throw that out there.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's just, there'll continue to be missed opportunities. I think that daycare is a perfect example of how, I don't know how many years ago it was where this committee talked about requiring, LEED certification on buildings. And, we kind of danced around it and, oh, we really can't do that, or can we do it, And so then you get a building like that daycare, which, does all the wrong things. I'm sure they meet New York State, the minimum for New York State Energy Code, but that's pretty minimum. So I just think, areas that we can move on, we should just try to push forward.
I mean, it's difficult to require things of people, but could the town make it easier, or I don't know, provide the alternative to people? Without getting involved in the private versus public sector kind of thing, And as a way for the town to encourage the move in the right direction without putting the gas furnace people out of business or whatever that would get us in trouble as a municipality.
Well, definitely we could address, some of our zoning requirements and code requirements in terms of the density of housing, other things that are more equitable from a inclusion, diversity, and equity standpoint as well. So that has been the topic of discussion as we develop our inclusion, diversity, and equity action plan. We don't often think about connected sidewalks and multimodal transportation as equitable, but it's definitely come up during our discussion on the idea board many times. And so we are looking at code changes that are both more sustainable from an environmental standpoint and more equitable in terms of inclusion in our community. So yeah, this is not the only place that we're talking about codes.
Could we give the options on the website, like different ways of running MEP applications, electric versus gas, and then people can decide?
The developers are going to take the least expensive option, I mean.
But when we are talking about carbon and green, sustainable and stuff for Brighton.
Are there projections that electric is ever going to get cheaper? I mean, the way electricity is going, it seems like eventually it's going to, it seems like the curve is going down towards, with electric, it's going to get cheaper. So maybe encourage the investment in the future and money levels.
But also it should show how the electricity is being made.
If the town wants to encourage developers to improve energy efficiency of new structures, then they can provide tax credits or pilot agreements if certain efficiency standards are met. I mean, that hurts the bottom line of the town from a budgeting standpoint, but Brighton is notoriously a difficult place to build and develop in. And if there's a clear set of standards that says, if you meet these, fair standards, LEED, whatever, we'll agree to do this to fast track your project or whatever the case may be. developers are businesses, right? So they care about the return on their investment. So anything that we could do to reduce their tax burden in the near term to offset maybe the higher CapEx to install something more efficient, it would certainly drive adoption. I had proposed in a meeting maybe a year ago, to deploy EV charging throughout the town, make a choice, either plant X number of trees or have X number of public access EV chargers on site. And that way the developer could make a choice, but it would encourage them to start considering things like this. Cost nothing to the town to do that. I know there's some tree fans on here, but there's things that the town can do from a building code and ARB standpoint that would encourage developers to do this.
So it sounds like, my suggestion is maybe people should look at the climate action plan. I don't know when the last time people have read it, and see if something stands out that we should be, if there was something in here that we should focus on, and are there new things that have come up that we should consider? And maybe if we think about in the context of equity and inclusion, right? If that is also a plan being developed, maybe that is worth trying to take some action on, because then there might be more willingness, either we can support some recommendations that are coming out of these other committees, or there might be more reason to support our ideas. It's just a thought.
That's a good start, I think.
I agree, Erin.
Because I don't want to spend too much our climate action plan time, because if we're going to get a grant, we're going to have to we're going to be changing and adding things to this. Okay. All right, so everyone read the plan.
Homework.
Will do.
Homework. And so here's an example of something that I don't think was in the plan, the pollinator habitat. Something that I think we're hoping to take action on this year. Nate, do you want to, I don't know who wants to lead the update on that. You did see the minutes, which gave a lot of the update on our,
Yeah,
that
Nate,
was not
maybe,
on the meeting. Yeah, no, it was. Yeah.
Maybe Nate can just give us a brief overview of the meeting we had with Mike.
Yes, that one. Yeah.
Yep. So we met a couple weeks ago with Mike, just a brief meeting to try and fill him in on what we discussed and the reasoning behind it. Mike is always wants to make sure that it makes sense for the town and make sure that it's workable. And I without impacting, pedestrians or having townspeople feel like their lawns, the green space is disappearing and there's these weeds or flowers growing for reasons that they don't understand. Mike said he could probably produce one sign over the winter that would indicate what was happening. This was deliberate planting, that we were deliberately not mowing, so that people would understand from like an education point of view what we were attempting.
Yeah,
Everett?
yeah, that's fair. And so what we've committed to doing is having Brett, our GIS guy, develop a plan that we can, a map that we can share that shows all of the sort of areas that are mowed both by contractor and town staff or town staff, and open areas or parklands and that type of stuff, so that we could further drill down and on potential pilot projects for next year. But even before that, I talked to Mike and a couple of our parks guys, and these areas that I'm bringing up are areas that are currently mowed by a contractor. So these are areas that we pay to have mowed and could potentially be low impact in the sense that folks might not bat an eye if we start having pollinator areas here, just because they're usually kind of like forestry or, you know, pond areas that are kind of kept high most of the year anyway. So, you know, these are a couple areas like, you know, this area here between Fairhaven and the high and the I think this is 590 here. You know, it's a very wooded area that isn't, you know, well manicured, but we do mow kind of like the edge here. You know, maybe this area here might make sense, or same across the highway here. You know, we have our ponds, like the big Lochteville ponds that you all are probably very familiar with. Same sort of concept here. We have a pond area. This one's kind of unique in the Heatherstone neighborhood. I think this one is dry most of the year, so it's a detention pond. And, you know, it's kind of woody forestry, so it might make for a good solution. A bit further south from here, Deerfield, same sort of situation. There's a pond, but there's a lot of wooded areas around the pond within the parcel that might make sense, where maybe we can start experimenting with seed mixtures and that type of stuff. You know, same situation here. It's just kind of no man's land areas that we mow either once or twice a year that are kind of kept generally high or unruly might make sense. So, you know, I did go out and pick out some areas that I thought maybe might make sense with Mike and the park guys, and this would reduce the amount of mowing that we pay for, you know, throughout the year. So it's kind of like a win-win. So I don't know, maybe I can email these areas to you all and see what you think. I know in the past we talked about setting up like a field trip or something like that, or visiting.
Yeah.
Guys.
Any thoughts on the Westfall Road area where the Buckland Park and the Winter Farmers Market and all? I see them mowing there, and that could be a good.
I mean, it seems as though a lot of these areas you're looking at, most people would not see. And if we're going to do this, there's this educational component. You know, the Lochteville Pond, people see that, of course, but most of these other areas, it's like, I've never seen most of them, you know. I mean, it just seems like this could be a real educational experience. And I've spent some time over at Buckland as well, as Shubhangi's mentioning. And I mean,
Yeah.
there's some areas that we certainly want to keep open. Just, I mean, obviously the fields we want to keep open, but, you know, even some of the other green space, you know, where kids run. But there's some fairly steep slope areas that, you know, it seems like, and there's some low areas that are wet that are already not mowed. We can expand upon those.
Even the ones that are mowed on the street, if it's tastefully done, it doesn't have to look wild.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think the idea was to, like Nate said, start with something that maybe won't impact folks that much in the beginning, and until we have like a map that's put together where we can sit down and kind of analyze. These are areas that are readily available that, you know, we can consider, but
Well, so, I mean, no one's going to see it unless we tell them to go there. I mean, so who is going to analyze it? I mean, again, at Buckland, there are some areas that, you know, are not mowed. And I don't know, maybe people complain about those already, I suppose. But I'm just suggesting we, you know, expand upon those, you know, on the southern edge of you know, the loop that goes around. You know, just come out another 30 feet or so for quite a distance.
Yeah, I agree with Paul. And also with all this homeschooling and going out and with parents and kids more together, it could be a good exercise for people to see all this and partake in it.
Yeah, and a couple of things. I mean, one of the reasons that we looked at these areas was to also mitigate the town's, you know, lawn
Work.
effort. So it was like a
Mhm.
win-win situation as opposed to creating
Absolutely.
a new area and creating new work. So that's one of the reasons that we looked at those areas. But certainly, to your point, Paul, with George's help and Matt's help, Matt Beeman from the park, they recently created a trail area back here with a very large new butterfly garden and pollinator habitat area. So that's something that is currently underway. So if you're ever out at the,
I've worked on it. I've worked on clearing the trail and I've walked on it. And I think that's not where we would want to do a pollinator garden because it has lots going on already, and why disrupt that, you know? I mean, the only thing that's going to be mowed there is, you know, as the town has already mowed the path,
right.
you know, the rest of that area, I think we should just leave as is. I mean, you know, maybe we get Tom Snyder. Tom said he'd come and look and get his thoughts on it.
So some of the areas that Shivangi and Paul had mentioned, are those typically mowed by town staff or
Contractor.
Yes, I've seen that. Mhm.
Yeah. Town staff. Yeah.
town staff? So I think what in our discussion with Mike is that when work is performed by town staff, it's different the way it's sort of marked. I don't know how do you say that, you know, how it's accounted for. So whereas
you don't get the bang for the buck in the sense that you're not saving money because, you know, staff will get paid whether they're doing a job over here or they're repairing a street over there. You know, they will be at work working. Whereas if, you know, we reduce the number of areas that are actually mowed by a contractor, then we actually reduce the amount of money that we're paying out.
Isn't parts of Buckland are maintained by a contractor though? I mean, I've seen contractors out there.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I have to clarify that, Paul. I know a large portion of it is maintained by the park department.
So maybe Everett, when you're kind of finishing up these potential areas, could you look for a more visible area that like near one of the parks that could provide a more educational opportunity and save money for the town? See if there's an opportunity for that too.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I think Lac de Ville Pond is pretty visible.
Yeah.
You know, that's right there. So that might be a good first one. I don't know.
Right. And I think we're only starting with one potentially, you know, as a pilot project. It would be done in the spring. I think that was what.
Yeah, well, we talked
some time.
about Mike is potentially starting in the spring, but we can take a field trip to, you know, and at any time.
But the community garden looks great in this image.
Oh, in the ortho here, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
So Robin's saying she liked the Lac de Ville Pond as a potential one. Yeah. Let's if we can get this list out, you know, maybe even we can conquer and divide and take pictures or something, so we have something to discuss at one of our
We
next
can
meetings.
walk around, and on our walks we can take pictures and then hand it over to Everett.
Yeah.
At what point should we invite Tom Snyder? When we as a committee come into consensus on a place, should we invite him out at that point?
I think so.
Yeah, I think it would make sense to, you know, once we have a game plan, to get his thoughts on the various areas that were explored or you know, what else we should be looking for.
So Everett, if you send out a list, maybe we can kind of sign up and claim spots and go take a look at them, you know?
Okay.
Next month or so.
Or early, yeah.
But this is a great example of hopefully this is something that we can take action on, and you know that Mike was considering it, so it's a win-win.
Yeah, I think you know, in the beginning it'll be good to sell it as a budget neutral type you know, improvement, and so you know, it might be a good angle at first here.
Okay. Green amendment. Robin, you wanna?
Sure. I don't know if anybody had a chance to look at the materials, but there are a number of environmental groups right now looking at this Green Amendment resolution, trying to get municipalities and counties to encourage their state level representatives to support the Green Amendment. And in essence, the Green Amendment is just a 15-word addition to the New York State Constitution that would say each person shall have a right to clean air and water and a healthful environment. And of course, many of our rights are enshrined in the New York State Constitution, but nowhere currently is there a mention of a right to clean water and air and a healthful environment. So the Green Amendment would essentially provide these protections as a constitutional right for all New Yorkers, and basically shift the paradigm in a way that instead of talking about reclamation and cleanup and the sustainability from that standpoint, but basically instead prioritizing every person's right to a clean environment. And it would elevate the notion that clean air, clean water, and a healthy environment are inalienable rights that are, inherent to all human beings. So the process of a constitutional amendment basically takes passage of the amendment through 2 legislative sessions. So this resolution has already passed the New York State Legislature in 2019, and it passed overwhelmingly. And so we're looking to again have the newly elected legislature in 2021 pass the same bill, and that is the second passage. And then the Green Amendment can be presented to voters as a referendum on the ballot. Now, the reason why we're having municipalities and counties basically write encouraging resolutions is because, of course, when the legislature took action in 2019, it was not going to result in a referendum on the ballot. So they could kind of vote for it and give a sense that they were in favor, but there was no practical implication. So we think it's going to be important to have this kind of support in order to get it passed in 2021 when it will actually trigger a referendum. And so I've already floated this by the Community Services Committee and had members of the board weigh in that context. And since we have are expecting to have new representation both in the Senate and in the Assembly in 2021, we think it's an important time frame to kind of encourage this. And so the general sense was very positive. And what I was hoping is that in addition to this support from members of the Community Services Committee, we could also have a letter of support from the SOC encouraging the town board to take action. But like I said, people are pretty much positively disposed. It would just go in the packet when we take up the resolution for consideration.
Yeah, I'm all for it.
Sounds good, Roland.
Okay, cool.
Robin, the only thing that folks had asked when we were looking at this with a couple of folks was this FAQ here where they talk about definition of clean air and healthful environment and stuff. Are there any concerns about, the position that the town would be in terms of if there's no like technical definition to some of that stuff? It seems like it's pretty well addressed here, but Wasn't sure if there was any thoughts.
Yeah, I think, and I actually talked with Ken Gordon, the town attorney, about this today, because his concern, of course, is that it might expose the town to liability in some way. But this, basically, the way that I think supporters of this resolution are looking at it is more from the standpoint that it's the right thing to do, as opposed to any, potential liability. We have our environmental regulations and laws. We have SECRA, and I think that we will continue to have those, and we will continue to have discussions regarding, whether any given project or development impacts one's right to clean air, water, or a healthful environment. But I think it's okay to have those discussions, and I think it's we should consider this from the standpoint that it is the right thing to do, as opposed to whether or not there are ensuing liabilities.
Gotcha. Okay.
I support it, Robin. I think it's a great idea. I think it's an important backdrop to the laws that we have already, and a good reinterpretation of the laws, that the purpose is for all people to enjoy these things, these rights, rather than to narrowly define it as, this factory has to be cleaned up. I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, it's very positive.
Yeah, I mean, I support it as well. I think there could be a question of liability, but that's okay. If someone's really egregious in their actions and polluting water, then here we are.
Mm-hmm.
I support it too. I agree there already are regulations, and maybe I love the idea of changing the narrative, so it's just more positive, and
Yeah.
maybe it'll change the regulations too,
Right.
and maybe in aligning the other goals that New York State and that we want to have. So.
Cool. So,
Awesome.
Again, we're kind of targeting the new year, and we probably will add language to basically say that we have new representation in the state Senate and in the Assembly, and so this is one of the reasons why we're recommending the legislature take action. So among those whereases will be that type of background information, but pretty much Ken felt very comfortable with the language, and Ken Gordon, our town attorney, felt very comfortable with the language in the sample resolution. So it would very closely mirror this. And so if the SOC is in support, I would just ask that you also, write a letter basically saying that you would support the town board passing a resolution in support of the Green Amendment.
Sure.
Cool, thank you.
Is there any possibility of Brighton adopting the same thing in our town? I mean, not just supporting it in the state level, but something local that says has the same sentiment? Or would that open us really up for liability?
I think that would be a higher bar.
Yeah.
In terms
I mean,
of
it's worth thinking about. I mean, if it's great for the state, it would be good for us too. I mean, just a thought.
Yeah, of course I would agree, but I think that certainly enshrined in the New York State Constitution, which actually guarantees the right to play bingo. This is a heinous omission. So
It could be something we could put in our climate action plan too, that we believe that, all citizens have a right to clean air, water. That's something we can
true.
put in there.
So in the past, we've put together letters of support like this, is it something where we'll just send like a draft out to the committee and then everybody weighs in and kind of goes from there? Okay.
Sure.
Thank you, Everett.
Yeah.
Everett, is this something you want to do, or do you need help drafting it? Or-
I'll probably need help, but I can certainly give it a first shot, follow similar formatting from the past, and then, or unless you want to meet Aaron and kind of chat about it, or it works either way for me.
Okay. I'm happy to meet with you if you want help with it, or you could send it to me first and I can.
Yeah, why don't I do that?
Whatever.
I'll put
Okay.
something together, send it out your way.
And then we can send it out to everyone to look at.
Thank you, Everett and Aaron.
Not no problem.
Yeah, Robin, we're wondering any updates on CCA while you're up.
Oh, yes. Oh, my gosh. So exciting. Yes, we have a major update on
Ooh.
CCA. We had the second round of responses come in, and we had a bunch of conforming products, actually. And as of last Thursday, the supervisor affirmed the source power bid selection. That is a New York-based REC for 100% renewable energy for 24 months beginning on January 21st. So that will be our CCA. The bid price actually came in at 0.04292. And that is lower than the RG&E brown mix that we currently have. So we're really excited that it will come in at a savings to our residents. And it is also substantially lower rates than anybody could get a 100% renewable product on the market today. So it's about 20 cents lower. So so right now we're going to have a press release that goes out tomorrow. Now, I think I spoke in the last meeting about how the different members of our Monroe Community Power CCA, the different municipalities were kind of going in different directions as we put standards out for the next round of bidding. Brighton kind of chose to take a tack where we were going to be ensured success. And other communities did not choose to take the same road in terms of their RFP. So they were basically edged out in terms of some of the opportunities that Brighton was given. So Brighton will have source power. Irondequoit is going to have a different provider that is not a New York-based REC, and the difference between having a New York RECs versus national RECs is that, obviously NYSERDA does not recognize national RECs as opposed to anything based in New York. So we maintain our eligibility for grants through NYSERDA. It is a recognized 100% renewable product with NYSERDA. So again, it was a huge win for the town of Brighton. So Irondequoit is on board. I think that Pittsford may not be on board for the time being, but we were joined by Victor and, one other community. Ever, do you remember the other?
There was Pittsford, both the village and the town.
There were a couple communities in Ontario County that actually were seeking bids at the same time. So even though it's Monroe Community Power, I think it's going to be Brighton, Irondequoit with a different vendor, Victor, and there's one other community I think that got in on this round. So we're really happy to be moving forward finally. And over the next few weeks prior to the opt-out period, which has to be publicized within 5 weeks of contract, you should be hearing a lot about CCA. We're working with Jewel and Rocktricity to make sure that we raise awareness about this win, because again, it's unprecedented, and we are really happy to finally be in a place to provide this for the community, and we'll go from there. You know, to having a 2-year fixed rate that is so far below the brown mix is really a huge accomplishment. So we're all very happy.
Congratulations.
That's awesome news. Very exciting.
Yeah. And we will be rolling out our CDG. One of the ways that we were able to get such a good rate from Source Power is that they also wanted the community distributed generation a contract, which is, you know, in this area, for all intents and purposes, it's community solar. So they will also be this community solar provider. And so we will be marketing both at the same time.
That's awesome news.
That's
Thanks so
all I
much.
Great
have.
news.
Yeah, okay.
That's
All right.
great news.
Good
Pretty good. Yeah.
Awesome. All right, should we move on to development?
Yes, this should be quick here. Winter farmers market, you know, I've talked to this, but essentially interior renovations are underway. Floor slab is poured. They're currently framing. All the exterior utilities have been installed: electric, gas, sewer, water. You know, some of it was installed by town staff, the rest by RG&E, but that's all installed and completely ready for the interior work. The only update I have on geothermal ordinance is that we actually did have a methane gas pocket that was hit recently on a geothermal installation, and our process worked in the sense that we had contact information, emergency services were contacted, and everybody knew what was going on, and so there wasn't this chaos that used to occur when we didn't have folks pull permits. So let me see here.
How deep was that when they hit methane?
It was only 150 feet. So, you know, we had contractors revise their depths because they were hitting pockets that were deeper, you know, in the 200-300 range. But this one was actually in the 150 range, which is fairly shallow for them. I did have a contractor who backed out because they were scared to do geothermal in Brighton, I guess. And so they opted to go for a different installation type. Not geothermal. Library roof replacement. So the town is currently looking to replace the roof system in the library, which is in poor condition. We have SWBR is our consultant on this project, and they're considering various alternatives. One of the things that they did talk about was, you know, we had asked them to look at white roofs, and what they told us was that in the Northeast, it generally doesn't provide much benefit because of our heating degree days, as opposed to you know, the cooling. So I wasn't sure if any of you had any you know, text or documentation or reference that maybe could help me kind of fight that, or you know, provide the other side of the coin.
I can look into it and help you.
Okay, because what I was going to do is I was going to send it over to them and say, you know, there is a benefit to maybe still looking at this or something like that. But they are considering all of the alternatives, and then they're going to go out to bid basically, and you know, we'll review what comes back.
I mean, I've gone through this even with SWBR on buildings when I was on campuses, and you know, it's marginal, you know, both ways.
Okay.
Some of it has to do with what's around you. You know, you have a lot of parking lots in that area already, so we're just adding to the heat island. I will say that, you know, probably the biggest negative to the, or one of the negatives to the light color roof is that when you're up there on a sunny day, it's blinding.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
I mean, and that's an issue for maintenance folks, you know, there's no question about it. I've experienced it. It's close, you know, and I think ask SWBR to, you know, produce some kind of documentation on the pros and cons. Some also has to do with how well the, you know, the roof is insulated. I don't know if, you know, you're going to get into re-insulating or not in that area, but that has a lot to do with it, of course.
Okay. That's good to know, Paul. Thank you.
Are they, you know, if we're putting a new roof on, is there possibility of doing some rooftop solar? I mean, that's, you know.
Yeah, but I think, Brian, you can jump in here. I think one of the things we previously looked at is because of the lack of receiving tax credits for municipalities, it's generally not feasible, but Brian, I'll defer to you.
Yeah, I did a quick review, I don't know, 9 months, a year ago. Aaron, similar to what we've seen elsewhere, it's just the avoided cost of power is so low because of the way the town purchases power. You know, to have somebody own it as a third party to monetize the tax credits and depreciate the system, they can't meet their investment rates. So unless the town wants to buy more power, pay a premium for solar, it just, or get a grant for it, it's not gonna work.
Yeah. Okay.
Mm.
Yeah, but it is one of the things we brought up with them. So that's kind of a cool project that's happening. CCA, we got a great update from Robin on that, so some good news. Let's see, Cobra Head LED replacement. That is one of the projects that we're waiting for grant funding on. So we were told that we have a grant to replace Cobra Head lights, street lights on our main roads there, but we actually don't have the funds and don't know when we anticipate them at this time. Let me see. Climate action plan we talked about. Multiversity plan is in a similar situation with the climate action plan, where we've been awarded these grants but don't actually have the funds, and not even under contract, at least for the climate action plan and multiversity plan. So we are awaiting basically from the state what the next steps or next process in this is. And that's all I have for updates, unless anybody has questions or comments.
You know, Everett, you went by the Highland Crossing Trail. I know it's been complete for a while, but it's the section. A lot of the sections are great, but certainly off of Westfall going north, it's a great area back in there.
Oh yeah, isn't it beautiful? Especially once you get into the boardwalk area.
Yeah.
Behind St. John's. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the only problem I've had on my bike is that there was one morning I was out there, there were so many deer that it was really hard to get by. But other than that, and that's not really, so it's a great area. I mean, I love Brickyard and it's terrific. But this is really nice as well. And I encourage folks to get out there.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the nicer components of this is that it takes you into the city there. So, you get a good view of everything. So it ended up being a great trail for us.
One thing I would like to mention is, I think with Nate, we had a meeting in our on our street, and Nate did mention about the pollinator garden in our duck pond area. So everybody was very happy to hear about it. Nate, you want to fill in?
Yeah, so we have our neighborhood owns a little slice of property that runs adjacent to Allen's Creek and then up over to Edgewood. And we agreed as a neighborhood to look at replacing some of the grass there with natives. So I'm going to ask Tom Snyder to come consult with us over the winter and see if we can fill that in with, the same pollinator type mix that we'd use on town property. So just trying to do a little of this in our own backyard too, and that should give us, Shibangi and I, at least a good sense of what the process is like and what the difficulties are and so forth. And yeah, so we'll keep you appraised of that.
That's great. While we're touting our streets and neighborhoods, I think, over the years, and Steve will probably jump into this, we've talked about refuge districts and how it seems like it's a much more sustainable way to go because of fewer trucks, et cetera, et cetera. So our street, Penarrow, is now a refuge district. And I was surprised. I mean, I knew that it would be less expensive and to be in the district. And our household has gotten a really good rate in the past from Waste Management. And, the new rate will probably be about $40 or $50 less a year. And again, our rate has been historically low compared to all of our other neighbors. So not an easy task to get it through because of the petition that everybody has to sign. But it also really, I thought it was a great way to just kind of bring our street together and get people talking. And so if you're not already in a refuge district, I encourage it.
We got ours done. That
Yeah.
just like yours. Yeah.
Same thing. Great.
And it's really good. Yeah.
You only had 7 houses though, right?
14.
14,
Twice as much.
37, yeah.
14.
37.
It is a great deal for residents.
Yeah.
You can go that route.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. We have new business twice, Everett.
Oh.
Is there anything new that we forgot about?
That's it. Yeah.
I think so. Yeah, go on.
I just had a quick question.
Yeah.
With the CCA, and I think that's such awesome news that that's going to be all renewable. Would that change any of our goals in our climate action plan, given that all of a sudden all of our electricity is going to be renewable? I mean, that's it's a really big deal to go all renewable. I think that's awesome. And I don't want to understate that how important that is. And when we didn't have that when we were making our goals, I mean, could we be more aggressive because of that? Just something to think about. I don't want to start a whole thing, but something maybe put on the agenda for next time.
Yep.
Yeah, and I will say that we were up for renewal with our energy consortium, our municipal energy consortium that we participate in. And we had wanted to join our own CCA, but because of the timing and whatnot, we just weren't able to. But hopefully in the future, our municipal buildings will also be part of our CCA.
What's the timing on that? How often is that renewed?
2 years.
Okay. So Everett, do we want to talk about our next meeting? I think we have a date here. We're not sure if we should meet or not, though we're starting to talk about, maybe there is something to talk about if we want to think about if we go look at pollinator sites and maybe some action items. I also just want to be respectful of people's time in the fall. So
Yeah,
meet?
Aaron, I agree. I mean, I think one of the reasons we thought about maybe not having it is because of the lack of movement on the climate action plan. But I think as you indicated, some things that come up at today's meeting that maybe do warrant, such as the pollinator habitat locations and maybe review of some of these goals or whatnot. But I'll certainly defer to the committee.
personally, it sounds like we got some things going on. I think meeting in November would be better than, you know, and if we had to skip a month, I'd rather skip December.
If we're going for a site visit or pollinator garden visit, it should be earlier in the day.
All right, well, sounds good. So it sounds like we should meet in November, and then maybe we'll consider skipping December depending on what's going on, if there's no movement on the grant.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Yes.
Second.
All in favor?
All in favor.
Goodbye. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Everett.
Yeah, no problem. It's always nice to see you.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Great to see you. Thank you.
Hey, Shubangi, it sounds like
Yes.
you wanted to
Yeah, I
chat.
wanted, yes, can you connect me with George Smith? I would love
Oh.
to work with him on those trees.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. You know, George is a teacher at
Yeah.
okay.
No, he knows me. Both the girls were his students, and
Oh, okay.
we got to know pretty well, and he still remembers them, and he's come over and all that.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I wanted him to be on our SOC committee, but he
went to the dark side and joined
yeah,
the conservation board.
I would reel him back in.
All right, sounds good. Absolutely. I will give you will his email be okay? What I'll do is I'll forward his email.
Or you can just reconnect all of us together, and then
Okay.
we can, send a group email for the three of us, and then we can, and Mitch if you want, and I would love to help out and volunteer with him.
With the tree inventory.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
It's
absolutely.
something positive.
Yeah, and I don't know if you heard when I was talking to Paul, but he is also working on a large pollinator garden at Buckland.
Yeah, I would love to work on that if he wants any
that
help
sounds like,
or resources.
Paul doesn't think it's too visible, but with some of these things, it's kind of easy to start off with something maybe not visible, but I think Lac de Ville is pretty visible, so that might be a great start there. And it's a win-win because we reduce, a required more.
Oh, definitely. No, and then once people start talking about it, you'll get people to look at it. And then when I was mentioning Westfall, along the park, I see your guys, are they mowing the lawns right on the side of the road?
Oh, no, like in the right of way next to the sidewalk?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's our guys. Yep.
Okay. But, even if we take small pieces and then you can always use your guys somewhere else.
Right.
Where you need them.
Yep. No, absolutely. Good point. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but that is such a visible area, and we can make it so pretty and beautiful.
Yeah.
That it'll be a major talking point for a whole bunch of people.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'd love to help out with in the park itself with George Smith, Doc Smith as they call it.
Oh, is that what? Okay. Awesome.
Yeah, Doc Smith.
I work with him every year when we do the stormwater annual report.
Yeah.
So every year the town as an MS4 regulated entity has to submit an annual report on stormwater activity. And one of the things that I always have him add is his activity